So this is the Kumu tutorial using the Gephi data or the Gexef data from Palace. So this is the raw data that I just dragged into Gephi, and what we want to do is look at this data laboratory section. You could export these as a table, but I prefer just being lazy and copy pasting. So the first section that we want to look at is this nodes part. And I just like doing Control A and then just copy pasting like this. When you paste it, make sure that this corner section here is actually labeled correctly. So I'm going to paste it down here from A2. That way I can label this as label, for example. But in this case, this is the ID column. This is the label column. This is the name, this is the energy, and this is the volume. So we really don't need these columns here, and we can go ahead and drag these over. And so I'm going to name this label, and you'll see why we do this in a second. We'll name this energy, and we'll name this volume. Okay, so that is the actual nodes data itself. Now we can go ahead and go back and click edges, and these are going to be the actual lines themselves. So same thing here. You could export it as a table, but I just prefer copy pasting it. So I'm going to go ahead and do a new sheet here and just paste it. For this data, if you look here, you'll see source and target. So the way that Kumu wants it done is you're going to do, instead of source, you do from to. This you don't really need because we'll set that up in Kumu. And then the ID, again, we don't really need that. And we can keep, for example, these, which are the weights and the distribution. So weights and distribution. So this sheet here is going to be our edges table. And this sheet 1 here will be our actual nodes table itself when we import it. And again, just make sure that you start your sheet from A1. For some reason, when you import it from B1, it's going to mess up the import. So make sure that it always starts from A1. And same thing with this sheet here. So go ahead and save that. Now when we go ahead and go to Kumu, we can name it, create a workspace, and go ahead and give it a name. I prefer just using custom because I'm not entirely sure about, for example, big data. Maybe it could be useful, but I prefer just using custom. I prefer floating because you can always change it to fixed later on. And then here, see, we can do undirected. So get started. Go ahead and import your data. Excel. And as you can see, we have 2 sheets here. The label column is going to be the actual name on the bubble itself. Description, you can add a description column for later, and it uses markdown text. So you can add, for example, images, tables, etc. And then type is what you categorize by. So for example, if this M1 was like a metal, M2 is a metal, and then S3 is like non-metal, then you would set type to that extra column there. But because we don't have exactly categorizations based off these labels, we're just going to leave this blank. So we're going to save that import. And there we go. We have all our bubbles. As you can see, they are going to move around, but you can hit spacebar to stop them from moving. And you can look at all your nodes. As you can see, like this node, for example, it's connected to a lot of different nodes. But then these nodes, for example, are missing connections. So when you want to change stuff, you can hit this settings here. And there is an advanced editor that you can use. You have to basically learn the coding language for this using the documentation. So I won't go too in depth into it, but you can use the basic editor for most of your things. For example, these nodes are way too small, so you can customize your defaults here. Drag this up. And as you can see, we have decently sized nodes now. You can change the curvature. So for example, I think this is too curvy, so I will go ahead and make those straight. And you can change a lot of these different layouts. Make sure you save. And you can also, for example, filter, connect by, which essentially gives you extra features that you can filter by. So because this data set is just essentially just the names and the connections, it's not going to have much, but this is essentially as far as I got, and this is where the bulk of your editing is going to be to change the view